Welcome back. We're just gonna go straight into another video. Have not seen this before. It is Looking Forward to Retirement. Looking Forward to Retirement is a Thing of the Past by Retro Report. Which, we watched that one video on pensions and retirements and how people of older ages, some got conned out of their pension, some got their pension fucked up by con men, and some people just didn't have the savviness to save for retirement, or they just didn't want to, or some people have seen that even though they save for retirement, they still have to work in their old age. But I think this is just gonna talk about how older people still do have to work past 65, and retirement is probably either something that's you have to do in your 70s, late 70s, or just not existent whatsoever.
We are hitting a moment where the elder boom, it's not a trend. It's actually a whole new way of life for our country.
Robert Fulton is 64 years old.
Come on, Water, warm up.
And instead of preparing for retirement, shuttling his RV between vacation spots, he drove his rig to North Dakota for a new job harvesting beets and corn.
This job isn't just sitting in the truck. It can be very physical at times, and you just keep up the best way you can.
After arthritis forced him out of his job as a union lineman and the 2008 recession cost him his house, Robert sold off most of his stuff and got a loan for an RV. For the last 5 years, he's lived on the road.
Why the fuck did he sell his house? And how did he not make money selling his house? Unless he bought his house for like an exorbitant amount. We need to know more about this man's story. This shit ain't adding up. I thought he was gonna be a truck driver, but bro, that RV looking kind of juicy. You know what I'm saying? Like he doesn't seem that bad off right now. That RV looking good.
Chasing seasonal work until his pension kicks in. Robert and other workers like him are upending old ideas about retirement and giving us a window into the future of aging. At a time when the world is about to get a whole lot older.
Skate Beast magazine for free, beautiful magazine.
Lifespans are increasing, birth rates are going down, and by 2050, the global population of people older than 65 will more than double.
There's a whole bunch of these guys, and we've maybe tapped a new market.
Already, millions of people are crossing into a period that used to be retirement, but they're not retiring. They're working longer, in many cases because they want to, but in many cases because they have to.
I bet you most old people that are working are definitely working so they don't die. Because after working for, 50 years of your 65-year long life, you're gonna want to continue working, dude. Like, I get that people look forward to retirement, but if you've been doing for something for so long, you just like stopping it. It's like any other thing you do, any other drug that you do. You're gonna have some fucking withdrawals, right? Like there's just no combating that, and I feel like most people don't talk about that. The loss that you feel when you stop doing something that you've been doing for 50 years. Like if you like you hear about all those old people that if their loved one dies, they usually follow them after like 3 years or whatever, because they have like heart pains, because they're just like sadness consumes them, and they kind of lose like their purpose. And it's almost the same thing. Like you need to fill that void that you just lost, and people say like, oh, you could get a hobby as an old person, you could do this. But if you are going in there without a hobby already, like what makes you think that this person is just gonna randomly find a hobby? He'd probably just go back to what he's comfortable with, and that's working, because people are creatures of comfort. And once they know something that they've been doing for, like I said, for 50 years, then they're probably more than likely going to try and look for something similar to that and keep doing the same thing that they've been doing. But like I was working in the military for like 6 years, and after I got out of the military and like started going to school, I was like pretty confused and pretty lost because I'm so used to doing military shit, and then once I found a a bunch of freedom, bunch of off time, it was really like disorientating, and I didn't know what to do. So it took me a pretty long time to navigate through those feelings and figure out a different outlet and try to focus on what I'm doing now rather than what I was doing before. And I've filled that space of work with playing more video games, with spending more time with my family, with doing YouTube and doing something creative, with painting, with drawing, with reading, just a bunch of like there's so many things that I'm doing now, right? That's filling in that one thing that I was doing, because that was like my core identity. Like you can say as much as you want that you shouldn't have that as a core identity or whatever, but if that's the only thing you're doing and that's the only thing you're ingrained into, and like I said, if you didn't have like a hobby while you were doing that's building you as a person, and eventually, no matter how hard you try, that thing that you're doing, even if you don't like it, becomes a part of your identity. And breaking off that piece is like a recipe for disaster unless you get a good steward, a good shepherd to guide you to making yourself whole again. And that could be a psychiatrist, that could be a family member, that could be a friend, that could be what I'm doing is finding different hobbies to see what I like. And I'm now using how I solve that crisis for me into other aspects of my life, like finding the right niche for YouTube, like finding the right topics that I like watching, finding the right videos that I like watching, incorporating it to something that I'm already doing, like playing video games. So it's always helpful to try and learn more about yourself to make yourself feel better, rather than just doing drugs or drinking alcohol, which is also a drug, or avoiding things. So it's important to really do an introspection, because once you get to this age and you've been doing for something for like I can't even imagine what it feels like to lose something after being with it for 50 years, whether it's a family member, whether that's like a child, whether that's a spouse or a friend or a job. That's like a massive part of your life, and if you just lose it, then you're certainly going to need help to fix that.
Which means that reaching your 60s in the 21st century may look vastly different from this.
When I retired, my first project was to do absolutely nothing. This is the life.
Although it was never a reality for all workers, the mid-20th century American model of a generous retirement underwritten by government and corporate pensions is becoming a vestige of the past. Some economists say we're starting to see the fallout from changes made in the 1980s, when pensions started giving way to 401ks, which are less secure and more prone to the highs and lows of the stock market. And more people are relying on Social Security to help fund their retirement.
So anybody now who's living a middle-class life face a very high risk of being poor when they're retired, and that's new.
One study projects that 40% of older middle-class workers will have incomes below or near the poverty level when they retire. And researchers have found that the percentage of people filing for bankruptcy who are over 65 has increased 5-fold since 1991.
This is a situation that the boomers' parents and grandparents did not face. This is a real reversal of what it means to age in American society.
growing numbers of
Then you got to think about like those boomers' parents. When they started Social Security, they got to use Social Security for maybe like 10 years at most. Then they fucking just died off. And they didn't contribute as much because, it started midway through their life. And then now all these boomers are seeing like, oh, this system actually fucking sucks. And then we're just never going to see it. It's going to be replaced by the time we're old enough to see that shit.
of older Americans are facing harder and harder choices.
It's the sort of story that Jessica Bruder routinely heard while researching her book, Nomadland. She followed a growing cohort of nomadic seniors who are mostly white, largely male, but with increasing numbers of women. And these nomads have found an extreme solution to dwindling retirement savings and the rising costs of housing and healthcare.
I met people who had lost their small businesses, people who had lost their homes, people who had lost all their savings in the 2008 collapse, people who were never able to put enough away because they were stuck on a low-wage treadmill.
I couldn't afford an apartment on my Social Security. It couldn't happen. You can come out here and eat if you want, come on. I'd rather have my little van with my little space, my dog, in the desert, and I'm perfectly happy with that.
I'm seeing my role as moving away from the man who does it and to the facilitator that puts you together, and that's the whole thing I'm trying to do.
Bob Wells created an annual gathering for the nomadic workers, and he's become a bit of a guru for people looking to live off fixed incomes in vans and RVs.
There just really aren't any good options, but the one everyone hopes for is low income or senior housing. And yet the waiting list for those is typically very, very long, years and years. And so I had found a solution. And I felt like I had an obligation to tell people there was a solution.
Hi folks, welcome back to our next video. This is going to be a series of 10
It's fucking big RV, dude. Propaganda type shit.
jobs for nomads.
I think it's important to learn from this group because these people are facing financial issues that will be impacting everybody. Becoming nomadic is just one hack that people are using.
I designed this so that I would have a stove in here. I do have running water. The whole build and van and everything so far has been right around $3,000.
If the going's getting harder,
This cannot be the solution. To like displace people and put them in RVs and tell them to just like, all right, fuck off, like go live in the desert. There's no houses over there. You're not gonna bother anyone. Just go over there. This cannot be how we treat people that have been working and building the foundation of American society for the past 50 years, and we're just telling them to go die in the desert alone. Come on, this cannot be it.
for more of today's retirees, prospects may be even worse for younger workers who face the twin challenges of paying for longer lifespans while working jobs with fewer guaranteed benefits.
If the near future of aging is filled with a lot of middle-class workers becoming poor elders, then the future of aging for millennials is going to be even worse.
So I think now the new reality is a lot of people I know expect to work until they die, which is hard because bodies give out.
If people are going to be working for more years, that's going to mean finding jobs they can actually get.
Our economy is still set up for a younger workforce. So a lot of people, as they age, are facing ageism in their workplaces.
I grew up to don't trust anyone over 30. We've all been trained to discriminate against our elders. I mean, since I was a child, I remember all the images of elder people were making fun of them.
And prospects aren't always great in the sectors that are looking to hire. Home health aide and personal care jobs, for example, they're hard to automate, and the elder boom means demand for this kind of work is rising fast. But these jobs have low wages and few benefits.
A lot of people ask me, are robots going to take care of grandma? And I just don't see it happening anytime soon.
These jobs have historically been low-wage, poverty wage jobs, predominantly women, a majority of whom are women of color and immigrants, so they've been extremely undervalued. So now is the time for us to actually invest in this workforce Care jobs are jobs of the future. We have a tremendous opportunity to reimagine what these jobs are.
Transforming the workplace looks to be even more
These guys
necessary,
suck.
as many healthy people want to find a way to stay productive, especially during the nearly 20 years we've added to our lifespans since the 1930s.
When I used to think 65 and
I watched a video on like useless jobs. It said like something 70% of most jobs in America and really in the world are pretty useless. I guess this would have been only first world countries. Could be automated and really doesn't need as much people in the workforce. Like you could find a company that has 15 accountants that one software can do, you know, or they have 25 low-level technicians that one high-level technician can do, but it would increase the work needed by that high-level technician. And of course, most companies aren't going to increase the pay that they're giving them. And this goes the same for like McDonald's. You don't need 50 people in one store, but it does employ 50 people. And it was mainly a call to action / spread awareness on how UBI isn't only for poor people, how could eliminate unnecessary jobs and really start specializing the workforce to make a more effective and productive workforce. But this also I see as another plus for older people not having to worry about, like, you could just get rid of the pension program and do UBI for everyone, right? And older people can still do, if the RV shit is what they want to do, then they can still do the RV shit. But now at least they don't have to worry about having to work and do backbreaking labor when they're 65 and not having health insurance and their back breaks and they're just dead.
70 was old. Now I'm in that group and it doesn't seem as old as I had thought. This age is a lot better than I was expecting.
The idea that 65 would be sort of the end of your career and the sort of end of your work life just seems ridiculous at this point, both from an economic standpoint and from a cultural and human standpoint. People want to contribute for as long as possible.
And some students of this change believe redefining what it means to be in your 60s could mean the invention of an entirely new stage of life.
Adolescence was a creation of the beginning of the last century when we had a proliferation of young people who weren't children, they weren't adults. And so we created a new stage of life. It took 50 years till the word teenager even caught on. And I think the same thing is happening today in that period that used to be occupied by retirement. It doesn't have a name, but in fact, it's a new part of the life cycle.
Our cultural disposition towards aging is fear and denial. People growing older is not a crisis. It's a blessing. We forget that to age is to live.
Okay, yeah, that's cool to say, to age is to live, but then when you have all these old ass people that don't have money and don't have their pension, they don't have health insurance, they don't have anything, and they have to sell their houses just to survive another 5 years, then after 5 years, well, what do? They become homeless, then the homeless population spikes up, that are, fucking a bunch of 80 years old that have no home, and you have 50% of them living in the desert in RVs. Like, what? You can't just say stuff like that and not have the same valid criticism to at least make it equal.
With studies predicting that babies born this century will increasingly live for 100 years, significant hurdles will need to be overcome. And it's not...
Dude, whenever people talk about like, oh, I wish I could live to 85, and this guy's talking about, 100, like your minimum, most viable age, minimum viable age is 100. You could live past that. And isn't that just absolutely mind-blowing, like flabbergasting? Like you go to school And whether you only just finish high school, then you go to work, or you go to college and then you go do your big boy job. If that's what you're doing, that means at the fastest you could start getting to work at 16 and join the workforce, and at the slowest you would join the workforce at 22, 23. So that means the first 23 of years of your life, you're not really worried about anything, right? And then after 23, you start adulthood. You get your job, you start paying more bills, you start seeing why you need medical, you start family, whatever. And to get to the middle point of that, you would have to be almost 50 years old. And that's only you working for half your life. And then you expect them to keep working till they're like 80, 70 years old. That's another 30 to 40 years when they've just become an adult for 25 years. So they have to keep doing the same fucking thing for 30 more years. And then they can retire and go die in the desert. I'd rather die, dude. Hell no. I'd rather die at fucking 50 or something easier, Shit.
Not only jobs that will need to be rethought.
This is a permanent reality. So it means that we have to redesign our housing, our infrastructure, our economy to actually support people to live an average of 20 years longer than when most of our systems were put into place.
Will we end up being able to make the adjustments that will turn the aging society into the aging opportunity? And right now, I think that the answer to that question is an open one.
This guy was dead ass. How do we profit from old people? Is what he just said, right? Like how do we make money from old people? That's crazy. Like this lady's trying to solve problems for her generation, the people that are gonna live to 100 years old, but damn the people that are already 70, 60, 70 years old that aren't gonna live to 100 years old. Like fuck their life, right? Like I'm gonna live to 100, so I gotta figure that shit out for me. That's just that shit sucks. Fuck. Oh, it's over. Yeah, bro, that's just ass. Like living that long does not sound very A1, doesn't sound that great. Sounds like a lot of hassle that no one is really talking about. Everyone's like trying to get you to live longer and get you to enjoy life, but if all you're doing is working for 80 plus years after going to school for 12 to 16 years, maybe longer in some cases, like what? Just really filling your time with society's purpose rather than filling your time with what you deem your purpose is, what you think your purpose is, right? Like these people had to work for 80 years at a job, living in a different lifestyle that they had to grow accustomed to figuring out that, oh, I guess all I really need is a van in the desert and I'd be fucking fine eating some cactuses or something, some ayahuasca. But to each your own. Guess we'll figure out when we grow older.